Hey, good morning, everybody. Our goal today in math is to rename fractions and mixed numbers. We have learned that a mixed number is a combination of whole numbers and fractions. We have also learned that mixed numbers can be renamed as a fraction greater than 1 or an improper fraction. Improper fractions tell exactly how many unit fractions make up the mixed number. Remember, unit fractions always have a numerator of 1. For example, 1/12. They are the building blocks of fractions. Let's take a look at our problem. Mr. Fox has 2 3/6 loaves of cornbread. Each loaf was cut into 1/6 size pieces. If he has 14 people over for dinner, is there enough bread for each person to have one piece? The first thing I want to do is make sure I understand my problem. I see the total amount of cornbread is 2 3/6 loaves. He cuts the loaves into 1/6 size pieces. He wants to make sure that everybody has at least one piece for dinner. And he needs to make sure he has enough cornbread to feed 14 people. Now, let's do a little more thinking here. What is the size of one piece of bread relative to the whole? He has 2 3/6 loaves of cornbread. They're cut into 1/6 size pieces. So that tells me that each slice of bread is 1/6 of the whole. How much bread does Mr. Fox need for 14 people? Well, if he wants 14 people to have one piece, he needs at least 14 1/6 size pieces. Or if I add 1/6 14 times or multiply 1/6 times 14, I see that that's 14/6. So he needs at least 14 pieces or 14/6 pieces. Let's think about how to solve this problem. My first step. One way I can do it is make a model. Right here on my first model, I have my loaves of bread laid out. Here's 1 loaf of bread, here's 2 loaves of bread, and my other fraction was 3/6. So there's my 3 unit fractions, 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6, which equals 3/6. So I can think that he has 1 whole loaf of bread plus 1 whole loaf of bread plus 3/6 left over. My next step is to think about how many 1/6 size pieces are in each whole part. The bread is cut into 6 size pieces, so the fraction must be 6/6 because I need 6 parts of bread to make up 1 whole loaf. So 6/6 for my 1 loaf of bread plus 6/6 for my second loaf of bread plus my 3/6 left over. I can look and see how I cut each whole part into 6, and I have one big long row of unit fractions. My third step is to add my numerators, but I keep my denominators the same because I haven't changed the size of my pieces. I still have 6 size pieces, but now I could, one of two things, count all my unit fractions, or I can add 6 plus 6, which is 12, and then add my 3 parts left over, so 12 plus 3 is 15. Mr. Fox has 15 6 size pieces in 2 3/6 loaves of cornbread. So he does. He's got enough bread to feed his 14 guests. Now flip the page with me and let's take a look at another example of how you might need to do some fraction problem solving. Let's pause my video. Okay, sorry, I had to get myself situated here. Now let's take a look at Charlene's problem. I see my example, well, my directions is to write a fraction greater than 1 as a mixed number. Remember, fractions greater than 1 are improper fractions, or we've called them ladies with ugly hats. Now let's take a look at Charlene's problem. To weave a bracelet, Charlene needs 7 pieces of brown thread. Each piece of thread must be 1/3 yard long. How much thread should she buy to weave the bracelet? I need to write 7/3 as a mixed number. So that means I need to have a combination of a whole number and the fraction part left over. One way I can do this is to model 7/3. I can use a number line. My number line is cut into third size pieces because each piece of thread must be 1/3 yard long. I have 7 parts on my number line because she needs 7 pieces. So since each piece of thread has to be 1/3 yard long, I can think of using my number line in a way to help me. Let's think of all these unit fractions. So she will need, there's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Remember, we can write a fraction as a sum of the unit fractions. So let's do this. So 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3. So I have written all my unit fractions out. Now my job is to see how many unit fractions add up to one whole. If I look on my number line, I see one whole is made by 3/3. So there's one whole. I can count another 3/3. I can skip count 1, 2, 3. 6/3. That's another one whole. And then my 1/3 left. So I can add my whole parts then. 1 plus 1 is 2. And then I have 1/3 piece left over. So Charlene needs to buy 2 1/3 yards of thread to make her bracelets. Now let's take a look at our share and show at the bottom of the page. We are going to fill in this number line to show mixed numbers and the fraction equivalent. Let's fill in the fraction part of the number line first. So I take a look and I see that I have 6/6, then a missing fraction, then 8/6. Since my number line is cut to show one part of my whole, I know that each portion is 1/6. So if this is 6/6, this must be 7/6. If this is 8/6, this must be 9/6. 10/6, 11/6, 12/6. Notice 12/6 is equivalent to 2 whole parts. 13/6, 14/6, 15/6. There's 16/6. So we've used our number line to complete the fraction part of this line. Now let's take a look at our mixed number portion. Remember, mixed numbers are a combination of the whole parts and the fraction that's left over. So I want to start back here at the beginning. I see I have one whole part, which is equal to 6/6. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Again, remind yourself that the fraction line is cut into 6 size pieces. So each tick mark is going to be 1/6. If I go one more mark over, that's 1 1/6. So if this is 1 1/6, 1 1/6 plus 1/6 equals 1 2/6, which is equivalent to 8/6. 1 3/6 plus 1/6 equals 1 4/6, which is equivalent to 10/6. Then I already have 1 5/6, 2, 2 1/6. Now I have 2 whole parts, so 2 2/6, 2 3/6, 2 4/6. So if you remember what your denominator is, that tells you the size of the parts you're working with. Just remember to keep that the same. Now I want you to pause the video. I want you to work on the front page of your homework. Don't just sit there and fill in your homework as I go through it. I want you to work on it, complete the front page, and then turn the video back on to check your work.